The moment Eliza Morgan stepped into the grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel, she knew her life would never be the same. What she couldn't have predicted was how a chance encounter with the city's most eligible bachelor would transform not just her world, but that of her 7-year-old daughter as well. If you've ever believed that some people are simply beyond redemption, this story might just change your mind. Stay with me until the end, I promise it will be worth every minute of your time. If you're enjoying this journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the power of love and second chances. Alexander Reed stood by the window of his penthouse office, gazing at the city skyline that seemed to bow at his feet. At 35, he had everything most people spent their lives chasing: a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, properties across 3 continents, and a face that graced the covers of business magazines monthly. What he didn't have was someone to share it with, and that was by careful design. "I don't do families," he told his assistant Margot for what felt like the 100th time that week. "Find someone else to be the keynote speaker at this single-parents charity gala." Margot, who had weathered Alexander's moods for 7 years, merely raised an eyebrow. "The board specifically requested you. It would be good publicity, especially after that article in the Times called you brilliantly cold." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Fine. One speech, no mingling, and I'm out." Little did he know that fate had other plans. Eliza Morgan rushed through her small apartment, trying to button her only formal dress while simultaneously helping her daughter, Sophie, find her missing homework. At 32, Eliza had mastered the art of doing 10 things at once, a necessity when you're a single mother working 2 jobs while pursuing a degree in social work. "Mom, why do you have to go to a fancy party?" Sophie asked, her small face scrunched in disappointment. Eliza knelt down, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Because Mrs. Winters from my work invited me, sweetheart. The foundation I volunteer for is receiving a big donation tonight, and she thought I should be there." She didn't mention that her boss had practically insisted, hoping Eliza might network with potential donors who could help fund the children's program she developed. "But who's going to read me my bedtime story?" "Aunt Jenny will. And I promise I'll be home before you wake up." Eliza kissed Sophie's forehead, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. The babysitter arrived, and with one last hug, Eliza was out the door, unaware that she was heading toward a collision course with a man who claimed he could never love someone like her. The charity gala was in full swing when Alexander arrived, fashionably late and already counting the minutes until he could leave. He delivered his speech with practiced charm, a perfect blend of inspirational platitudes and carefully calculated humor that revealed nothing of substance about himself. The audience ate it up, as they always did. He was making his way toward the exit when a server carrying a tray of champagne tripped, sending the golden liquid flying directly toward Alexander's custom Tom Ford suit. In a split second, someone stepped between him and disaster, a woman in a simple blue dress who took the full splash across her back. "I'm so sorry," the mortified server exclaimed. The woman smiled kindly. "It's just a dress. No harm done." Alexander stared at her, momentarily stunned by both her quick action and her reaction. Most people in his circle would have caused a scene over a ruined designer outfit. This woman simply grabbed a napkin and started dabbing at her dress as if it were a minor inconvenience. "That was unexpected," he said, finding his voice. "Thank you, Alexander Reed." He extended his hand. "Eliza Morgan." Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine but slightly reserved. "And no thanks necessary. I have a 7-year-old daughter. My reflexes for intercepting spills are finely tuned." Something in Alexander's expression shifted at the mention of a child. "You're a single parent?" "Yes. Just me and Sophie against the world." There was pride in her voice, not self-pity. "I see." His tone cooled noticeably. "Well, thank you again, Ms. Morgan. I'll have my assistant arrange for your dress to be replaced." Before Eliza could protest, he was gone, leaving her with the distinct impression that she'd somehow failed a test she hadn't known she was taking. What Alexander couldn't have anticipated was that Eliza Morgan wasn't just any single mother at a charity event. She was the creator of the very program his company had just agreed to fund, a fact his assistant Margot gleefully informed him the next morning. "You need to meet with her to discuss implementation details," Margot said, sliding a folder across his desk. "And before you say no, the board has already approved this, and the PR team thinks it's gold. Tech Billionaire champions innovative program for underprivileged children." The headlines write themselves. Alexander flipped through the proposal with growing irritation and reluctant admiration. The program was brilliant, a comprehensive approach to supporting children from single-parent households through education, mentorship, and community building. "Fine. Set up the meeting." When Eliza walked into Alexander's office 3 days later, she was a different person from the woman in the blue dress. Dressed in a simple but professional outfit, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew her worth. "Mr. Reed," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." Alexander gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Your proposal is impressive, Ms. Morgan. Though I'm curious, what made you develop this particular program?" Eliza met his gaze directly. "Experience, Mr. Reed. I grew up in a single-parent household after my father died when I was 9. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I saw firsthand how the right support system can make all the difference." For the next hour, they discussed the program in detail. Alexander found himself increasingly drawn to Eliza's passion and intelligence. She didn't defer to him or try to flatter him as so many did. She challenged his assumptions, defended her ideas, and occasionally even made him laugh with her dry observations. As the meeting concluded, Alexander found himself saying something unexpected: "I'd like to see this program in action before we finalize everything. Do you have any current sites I could visit?" Eliza hesitated. "We have a pilot program running at the community center in Westbrook. It's not fancy, but it's effective. You're welcome to visit, though I should warn you, it's in a neighborhood your driver might not be familiar with." Was that a challenge in her eyes? Alexander felt something he rarely experienced, the desire to prove someone's assumptions about him wrong. "Tomorrow afternoon," he said decisively. "I'll meet you there." The Westbrook Community Center was indeed a far cry from Alexander's usual haunts. The building was old but clean, with colorful children's artwork adorning the walls. When he arrived, precisely on time and without a driver, Eliza couldn't hide her surprise. "You came alone?" "Contrary to popular belief, I do know how to drive myself places," he replied with a hint of amusement. What Alexander witnessed over the next 2 hours changed something fundamental within him. He watched as Eliza moved among the children with natural ease, remembering each of their names, their siblings, their recent accomplishments. The program she had designed wasn't just about academic support, it created a community where these children felt seen and valued. One little boy in particular caught Alexander's attention. Quiet and serious, he sat slightly apart from the others, working intently on a complex puzzle. "That's Marcus," Eliza said softly, noticing Alexander's gaze. "His mother works nights as a nurse. He's brilliant with anything mechanical or logical." As if sensing their attention, Marcus looked up. His eyes widened in recognition. "You're the man who makes the Reed tablets. We use them in our coding class." Before Alexander could respond, Marcus was pulling him toward his project, explaining his ideas with the rapid-fire enthusiasm of a born engineer. Alexander found himself sitting cross-legged on the floor, completely absorbed in helping Marcus troubleshoot his design. When he finally looked up, he caught Eliza watching him with an unreadable expression. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, but her smile suggested otherwise. "It's just not what I expected from the man who practically ran away when he found out I had a daughter." Alexander felt an unfamiliar heat rise to his face. I didn't, he stopped, honesty compelling him forward. I have a rule about not getting involved with people who have children. Read, we're discussing a business partnership, not a personal relationship. Of course, he said quickly. That's what I meant. But as they walked to their cars later, something compelled him to explain. My father remarried when I was 12. His new wife had 2 children of her own. He promised nothing would change, but everything did. Eventually, he started a new family with her, and we, his first family, became an inconvenience, a reminder of a past he wanted to forget. Eliza was quiet for a moment. That must have been painful. It taught me an important lesson. Family complications are messy and ultimately disappointing. I decided long ago to avoid them entirely. That's one way to interpret that experience, Eliza said carefully. Another might be that your father failed, not that families are inherently flawed. Alexander didn't respond, but her words stayed with him long after they parted ways. Over the next few weeks, Alexander found himself increasingly involved in Eliza's program. What had started as a simple corporate sponsorship became a personal project. He visited the center regularly, sometimes bringing engineers from his company to mentor the children, other times simply observing Eliza's methods and offering suggestions for expansion. He told himself it was professional interest, nothing more. But when Eliza mentioned casually that she was struggling to find someone to help Sophie with a science project, he heard himself volunteering before he could think better of it. You really don't have to, Eliza said, clearly surprised. I'm sure you're busy. I have a PhD in engineering that's gathering dust while I attend board meetings, he replied. Besides, what's the project about? Renewable energy. She wants to build a solar-powered car. Alexander couldn't help but smile. Like mother, like daughter, ambitious. And so, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Alexander Reed found himself sitting at Eliza's kitchen table, surrounded by craft supplies and solar panels, helping a precocious 7-year-old build a miniature car. Sophie, initially shy, quickly warmed to him when she discovered he could answer all her why questions without checking his phone. By the time the car was assembled and successfully rolling across the kitchen floor powered by nothing but sunlight, she was chattering away as if she'd known him forever. Mom says you're a billionaire, she said matter-of-factly as they cleaned up. Does that mean you have $1 billion? Sophie. Eliza exclaimed, mortified. Alexander laughed. It's okay. And technically, Sophie, it means the company I built is worth billions. I don't have that much money in my bank account. Sophie considered this. But you could buy anything you want, right? Material things, maybe. But the most important things can't be bought. Like what? Alexander glanced at Eliza, who was pretending to be busy with the dishes but clearly listening. Like friendship. Or trust. Or... He hesitated, family. Later, as he was leaving, Eliza walked him to his car. Thank you for today. Sophie hasn't stopped talking about science since you agreed to help. She's an extraordinary child, Alexander said sincerely. You've done an amazing job with her. It hasn't been easy, Eliza admitted. Her father left when I told him I was pregnant. He wasn't ready for the responsibility. His loss, Alexander said, surprised by the surge of anger he felt toward a man he'd never met. Eliza studied him for a moment. You know, for someone who claims to avoid family complications, you're remarkably good with children. Just Sophie, he corrected her. And the kids at the center. They're different. Different how? Alexander struggled to articulate what he meant. They're real. Authentic. Not like the people I usually deal with who always want something from me. Children want things too, Eliza pointed out. They're just honest about it. As spring turned to summer, Alexander found himself increasingly entangled in Eliza and Sophie's lives. What had begun as professional respect for Eliza evolved into genuine friendship, and his initial wariness around Sophie transformed into something that felt dangerously like attachment. He took them sailing on his yacht, taught Sophie to play chess, and found himself looking forward to their weekly dinners more than any business meeting or social event. For the first time in years, his penthouse felt empty when he returned to it alone. But whenever the relationship seemed on the verge of becoming something more, Alexander pulled back, erecting invisible barriers that Eliza couldn't help but notice. "You're sending mixed signals," she finally said one evening after Sophie had gone to bed. They were sitting on her small balcony, the city lights twinkling below them. "One minute you're completely present, looking at me like I matter. The next, you're checking your watch and making excuses to leave." Alexander stared into his wine glass. "I told you from the beginning, I don't do families. You keep saying that, but your actions tell a different story. You've been more involved in Sophie's life these past months than her own father has been in 7 years. That's different. I'm not." "Not what?" "Not responsible for her." "Is that what you're afraid of? Responsibility?" Alexander set down his glass with more force than necessary. "I'm afraid of hurting her. Of hurting you. People like me don't make good family men, Eliza." "People like you? You mean successful, intelligent, kind when you allow yourself to be?" "I mean people who were raised to believe that business comes first, that emotions are a weakness, that family is." He stopped abruptly. "Expendable?" Eliza finished softly. "Alexander, you're not your father." The words hit him like a physical blow. "You don't know that." "I do. I've seen you with Sophie. With the children at the center. You're nothing like the man who abandoned you." Alexander stood abruptly. "I should go." Eliza didn't try to stop him, but her words followed him home. "Running away doesn't prove you're different from him, Alexander. It proves you're exactly the same." For a week, Alexander threw himself into work, avoiding Eliza's calls and texts. He told himself he was doing the right thing, that a clean break was kinder in the long run. But the emptiness he'd never noticed before now felt like a physical ache. On the 8th day, Margot placed a handmade card on his desk. "Sophie dropped this off. She was quite insistent that I give it to you personally." The card was decorated with glitter and stickers, Sophie's uneven handwriting spelling out, "We miss you," across the front. Inside was a child's drawing of 3 figures holding hands, a tall man, a woman with auburn hair, and a small girl between them. Underneath, Sophie had written, "Mom says you're scared. But Dad left because he didn't care. You leave because you care too much. That's different." Alexander stared at the card for a long time, something breaking and reforming inside him. He reached for his phone, then hesitated. Some things needed to be said in person. He found Eliza at the community center, helping a group of children with an art project. She looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. They stepped into the small office she used, the sounds of children's laughter filtering through the thin walls. "I got Sophie's card," he began. "I'm sorry about that. I didn't know she was going to." "Don't apologize. She was right." Alexander took a deep breath. "I've spent my entire adult life running from the possibility of becoming my father. I built walls so high that I convinced myself I was choosing to be alone, rather than risking rejection." Eliza remained silent, waiting. "The truth is, I'm terrified," he continued. "Not of responsibility or commitment, but of how much I've come to care for both of you. When I'm with you and Sophie, I feel like I've found something I didn't even know I was looking for. And that scares you? It terrifies me. Because now I have something to lose." Eliza stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "That's how love works, Alexander. It's always a risk. There are no guarantees. I know that now." He reached for her hands. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise I won't run again. If you'll give me another chance, I'd like to see where this could go, the three of us. Eliza.